all right? Drawing from his command on strategy, economies of scale, relational wisdom, and deal origination expertise. He is part of the National Working Committee Group on Data Science Fourth Industrial Revolution curriculum, curating the curriculum of 10 Fourth Industrial Revolution courses, gearing South Africa to compete on the global landscape through well-equipped data science practitioners across machine learning, blockchain, AI, etc. On repeat occasions, he led special envoys representing Europe's Nordic region, East, West, and Southern African terrain interests, and executed diplomatic interventions across private and public sector interests at the intersection of business expansion, access to new markets, product adoption, and transformation within emerging markets, including a specialist advisory role to the Lesotho government. At prime ministry level, his full immersion approach to innovation, strategic rollouts, and impact-oriented route to market makes him an ideal in Coronet's C-suite cabin, commandeering its milestones across an uncharted post-COVID trajectory. And so with this, gentlemen, I welcome you all to this episode, to this session where we'll be having a great speaker, Mr. Shadrack, who will be taking us on blockchain and the various use cases and the intersection between the blockchain and law. Thank you very much. You're welcome on board, Mr. Shadrack.
Thank you kindly. Thank you, Senior Counsel. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah. First and foremost, I would like to convey our deep gratitude to Madam Deborah and her team that at the level, at the altitude she operates, she is already deploying or practicing the lift as you rise principle, ensuring that she doesn't figure out blockchain by herself, or she doesn't tick the legal milestones and necessary boxes all by herself, but she has curated a platform of co-creation, a platform for all of you to lean forward and see the future as it is unfolding before your very eyes. I am very, very grateful, and I convey gratitude from my team to her team. And I also commend each one of you for taking this opportunity when Madam Deborah availed it in order to learn, unlearn, and relearn, because that's what will mark the future in any case. So I welcome all of you, and I salute all of you for your keenness and also your devotion to learning at this intersection, as I will attempt to do my level best to unfold the future and foretell it before it becomes. Much appreciated, Senior Counsel. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord. All right, so you have.
I appreciate. I'm going to put up on the board the cover for our guest lecturing or for this mentorship. And then I'm going to go about outlining some of the key fundamentals that we will unpack today. I must also emphasize today's discussion on blockchain and the legal profession regarding your opportunities to look out for is leaning more towards the practicalities, or put differently, what will be keeping your clients and your employers awake as the future unfolds. Much appreciated. I will proceed to share, and then we'll take it from there. I think I'm finally unmuted.
I'm so sorry, I muted you.
It's all good. It's all good. Thank you kindly. I will now proceed. As you can see, at the very headline of today's sitting is I've been requested to come and lift the curtain, and show you the future as it is becoming at that very nexus where blockchain intersects with the legal profession. And as I can imagine, you are all keen to know, as the rug or the carpet is moving beneath your feet, as you are even gearing to either graduate or you are gearing to receive hands-on practical exposure beyond graduation within the legal profession, within the Africa context, and of course, the rest of the globe. So in this lecture, I'm gonna be leaning towards what's practical. You are not gonna be hearing any much of tech speak today because your clients are not kept awake by tech speak, but they are kept awake by elements such as how is blockchain changing the game for what keeps them awake. Without much further ado, there we go. Madam Deborah, if you could kindly unmute our colleagues. Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. So with that being said, some of you may be aware that last week, West Africa hosted, particularly Nigeria, its most flagship event in the fintech sector called Nigeria FinTech Week. I was then requested to host a global facing panel that was looking around remittances and data management. Of course, put differently, those are money transfers. And I found it very fitting that in today's sitting, I begin by making an analogy before we delve into the nitty-gritties of blockchain, that if remittances were a loaf of bread, what would the world look like? I would like to zoom in a moment to bring it to you, or if I put it to you, that a loaf of bread by statistical standards it ranges between 20 and 24 slices, give or take. So with that being said, what this means, this analogy alludes to, is that if a loaf of bread was being sent by any of you, maybe in 5 years' time, maybe in 10 years' time, to your mom, to your family, or to whoever is back home. Maybe you're working in London, maybe you're working in Lagos, but you're from the rural areas. Maybe you're working in India, New Delhi, or you're working wherever in the globe, and you are attempting to send money home or send money to someone very close to your heart. If remittances or money transfer were a loaf of bread, what would that scenario look like? Let me put it to you. Say your loaf of bread only contains 20 slices. In a moment, I'll tell you where blockchain comes in and where the judicial elements of the matter comes in and where you come in. Say you are dispatching or you are depositing a loaf of bread that is 20 slices, maybe to your mom. Let's just hold on to that analogy. Maybe to your mom, who will then share it with 20 other people in the household and in the neighborhood. Here's what that means. What that means is that, one moment. What that means is that at least the slices you see on the screen now, roughly about 5 to 8, give or take, but about 5 slices will not reach your mom at all, in the current configuration of the global remittance network. Anywhere between 1, 2, or even 5 slices are not going to reach your destination. Maybe you're wondering why. You see, the global remittance industry, as an example of the banking sector, or as an example of the finance sector, is set up such that it has got cumbersome layers of security, cumbersome layers of administration, cumbersome layers of global trade dynamics. Let me name some of them. Your money transfer operators, your dispatching bank, your receiving bank, your currency exchange players, they're all in there, and other middlemen who perhaps are remaining nameless and titleless. They will all help themselves to that loaf of bread to ensure that by the time it reaches your mom or your family or your village or your neighborhood, they have helped themselves quite a bit to that loaf of bread. Now, obviously, I'm not embarking on a witch hunt. I'm illustrating a point that by how the global remittance network is set up now, it necessitated, whether by necessity or not, whether by fairness or unfairness, an involvement by multiple players in that equation that have somewhat been vetted to be given access to your loaf of bread before it reaches your loved ones. So where does blockchain come in, and where do you come in as emerging legal practitioners? Blockchain, good people, is, if this is a scenario, blockchain then, it seeks to peel away the onion layers, to peel away the fog, as it may be, in order to reveal and expose at the granular level whoever will attempt to lay their hands on your loaf of bread, revealing the why, the when, and the how. Why are they getting involved? Who are they? And what justification? You see, justice is coming in there. What justification are they using as a modus operandi or as a reasoning behind getting involved with your loaf of bread and helping themselves to it? Is that fair? Is that unfair? That's where your profession comes in. But where blockchain comes in, blockchain is that ledger that I will touch on in a moment that exposes and reveals all the moving parts and all the players involved so that a verdict can be done by consumers or society as to, was their involvement really justified? Was their helping themselves to those slices really what do you call it? Does it fall within the global fair trade? Blockchain does that. Blockchain shines the torch. Blockchain deploys a microscopic exposure as to what really happens on that banking ledger as your loaf of bread goes across the globe. I'm hoping that with this analogy, it sets the tone for what I'm about to discuss. Thank you kindly. So with that being said, without much further ado, thank you kindly. We've got a very simple outline of 4 points. I will delve on what is blockchain, the practicality side of it. I will now look at a practical application in real life cases. I will touch on 4, and then I'm going to now focus on a granular level on one of them, indeed. I'm not going to cover all of them. We only have an hour together before we shift into Q&A, which I'm anticipating your questions. You are welcome to start writing them as I speak. I will also delve on how you as emerging legal practitioners can be involved within the sector and beyond, or parallel to the sector as it may be. And of course, I'm going to close off by touching on about 10 opportunities that are definitely embedded in the blockchain equation. Instead of calling them opportunities, I would rather call them 10 focus areas that if you care about your legal future, you will turn them into a subject matter study. You will study these 10 areas that will keep you awake, because that is what keeps your clients and your employers awake. So what I call opportunities, kindly translate it into serious focal point in terms of the learning areas that you have to incorporate alongside your legal practice learnings. So with that being said, the next slide is dealing with what is blockchain. Let's find out. There we are. You know, there are at least 8 to 10 moving parts that one can unpack when it comes to what blockchain is. But I'm going to skip it, given that this is an introductory discussion on the matter. It's not an advanced learning. It's a what do you call it? It's the fundamentals and the very foundations. I'm going to touch on 3. Think of the accounting ledger, which is, I think, about 2 to 250 years old, ever since the banking profession decided on that ledger, and it informed all the other industries. Think of the old school accounting ledger, and now imagine that blockchain is the new school. Blockchain is the new school. In what way? The old ledger is centralized. I will unpack that in a moment. The new ledger, which is the digitized blockchain ledger, is decentralized. You see, at the very DNA of what blockchain is, just to lay aside some myths, blockchain is not Bitcoin, and blockchain is not digital currencies. While blockchain makes Bitcoin possible, blockchain is not Bitcoin. I just wanted to clarify that. So Bitcoin or digital currencies or CBDCs, meaning central bank digital currencies, or any currencies whatsoever, or tokens, they are an expression of blockchain. They are an area of blockchain. They are a dimension of blockchain, but they are not blockchain. Blockchain makes them possible. Blockchain brings them about. However, they are not blockchain. Blockchain in this regard is the enabler. It's not the end goal. So let me now unpack decentralization. The word decentralized is embedded into the very DNA of what blockchain is. Let me explain further. Remember, let us go back to that loaf of bread. I'm not going to scroll to it. Think of your loaf of bread. The minute you deposit it in London, it's now received by money transfer operators. You do not know their names, you don't know their administration, you don't know the time that they will process your loaf of bread, you don't know the time that they will exchange your currency, meaning convert your loaf of bread into money, and it shows up maybe in Lagos or wherever your home is. It's now converted back into money or into currency. You see, up to 50, if not 100 hands might actually handle your loaf of bread. But because the configuration of the current ledger is not decentralized, it's centralized. What does centralization mean? It means power is centralized in the hands of a few. It means you are not permissioned to see that ledger as it unfolds. You are not permissioned to see every entry. You are not permissioned to see every role player. You are not permissioned. And another thing about centralized ledgers is that centralized ledgers are a bit cumbersome because you don't know the who, you don't know the when or the what. That's why today sending remittances or money transfer around the world is a bit cumbersome of an exercise. It might take up to 72 hours instead of taking what? 7 seconds. It's because you don't know. So you can't hold the system accountable. You cannot say, wait a minute, why in Abuja or why in Dubai? Why did those people involved? Why did it take long? Why did they leave my loaf of bread on the ledger for like 12 hours? Why? You can't ask why. Because you're not permissioned. You don't have a line of sight into the ledger. You do not have it. So that's the main distinguishable differences between centralized and decentralized. Centralized means it's on a need-to-know basis. And as a consumer, the powers that be feel like you don't need to know, so you don't know. However, decentralized means every person, including the depositor of the loaf of bread or whatever that means, knows and sees who is involved. Think of it as the Olympics, the game of relay. That loaf of bread is like the baton being handed over to the next person and the next person and the next person. And you, as the initial carrier of that baton, you are able to see everybody, the speed that they are running at, and what their grip on the baton is, you're able to see, you've got a line of sight into that ledger. Instead of it being on a need-to-know basis, you are the one who's regarded as need to know. And the minute you're involved in that ledger, you are given certain permission. That is what it means, decentralized. Think of it as decentralized power, decentralized involvement, decentralized permission, or decentralized line of sight. That's exciting. The last point before I transition on to the next slide, vulnerable. What does vulnerable mean? I promised to get practical in this regard. I promise to really lean away from the technicalities into the practicalities. Say you are buying property. Say you are buying property and that property has been on a ledger. You know, that's where the area of law, conveyancing, and all those mortgage originators and all those legal practitioners that are involved in either the entry of property or the transfer of the property or whatsoever, including the permissioning of extensions, whatever that is. See a property as a ledger. Whatever happens to it, if you want to extend it, the entry is made. Well, Madam Deborah decided to add 5 more rooms. This is what they are. It's all entered on a ledger by town planners. So a ledger is very important. It becomes a collision point or a touch point between private sector players, public sector players, and the homeowner, including when the homeowner is transferring the property or selling it or ceding that property in their estate to perhaps their loved ones or to a charity of their choice. All of that lends itself into a ledger. It is that ledger that the legal profession wants to get involved with it at all its milestones. So where does this word vulnerability come in? Vulnerability comes in here. What if, God forbid, one of Madam Deborah's neighbors decides to maybe add 5 more rooms, but add them in such a way that it is illegal, meaning it has not been permissioned by council, and she does whatever is not permission. However, in that process, she brings compromises to the property, and because of those compromises, she chooses, or he or she chooses, to conceal those changes and does not express them on the ledger. Or, God forbid, maybe there is an infection in the walls. Maybe that property was actually damned or condemned by council. Maybe it was condemned by council and council decided, listen, we do not approve of this property. It is a danger. We are now writing it off. We don't regard it as safe to be inhabited. So with that being said, what happens? There we go. So with that being said, what happens if that fact that the property you're about to acquire was actually condemned by council? What if that is what makes that ledger vulnerable? It means that human beings can get creative and they could begin to edit things as they see fit, or to their end game or to their end goal. However, enter blockchain. Blockchain means the following. Immutable in this regard means whoever touches that ledger, whoever even so as little as pick it up, it will register across the decentralized community. It will register also on the ledger itself that on this day, Shadrack picked me up digitally and placed me in that drawer. Or Shadrack made an entry and perhaps he deleted that this property was damned. That's why, or else maybe the person who's sending money from the other side of the world, she did not donate 12 slices of bread. She only deposited 15 slices. So the vulnerability of current ledgers across the global trade, they are vulnerable, which is why there are inflationary expenses in the process of protecting you. That's what bankers tell us. They want to protect you. They want to introduce layers upon layers upon layers of protecting the ledger. So all those anti-fraud measures that they've introduced through policy and through working standard, or how do they call this, standard operating systems, they are adding a swell to their claim to your loaf of bread. So in that way, they're saying they're protecting it, but to this day, there's been some banks, I'm not gonna mention the name, there is a certain bank in South Africa that had to be forced out of the country because they were involved in some racket, some money laundering with a known company. You see, so it means even bankers have a vulnerability to being crooked, so to speak. So to make the ledger immutable, it means everybody will know what happened to it, and it's a lot more fortressed, it's a lot more protected than meets the eye. Thank you kindly. So as we transition to the next, I'm not sure, Madam Deborah, if you could edit all the writing on the screen. I see a bit of creativity there.
Very well, let me check. Please, could we try and stop drawing on the screen? Let me check if there's something I can do, please. I'm sorry, Shadrack.
No problem. The alternative could be I could adjourn the sharing and commence it again. Thank you so much. I believe I'm unmuted now. So, you know what? Proceeding onto the ledger, proceeding onto the practical cases. 100% of you right now, I will begin in the center. I'll begin with this. 100%, I'm sure beyond doubt, you wouldn't be in this meeting if this does not apply to you. 100% of you own mobile or PC devices with you. That's why we are able to talk today. And therein lies the belly of the beast. Excuse me. You are unaware whatsoever whether this young boy did not suffer human rights violation in the process of you either acquiring either your vehicles or your computer devices or your mobile devices. And I don't hold that against you. That is how the global trade has been set up as we know it today. It has with it multiple blind spots, meaning things like unethical sourcing of minerals is something that the previous era, the previous regime of the global trade did not really take into account or did not take into the core focus. So with that being said, it is now in this era of sustainable development goals, in this era of a more equitable global trade, in this era of human rights violations being minimized or eliminated, that we need to seek interventions that will protect this boy, so that at 4 years of age, he's only 4, at 4 years of age, him and his family will not be coerced to be unearthing or digging up cobalt and related mineral resources that lend themselves into this automotive trade or mobile devices trade or the computer hardware trade. Blockchain, remember, it's a ledger that will show you exactly the tracking, the tracing of the earth minerals from source up to the finished product, ensuring traceability, trust, and transparency. Therein lies the relevance of blockchain in ensuring that as the machinery or the wheels of the global trade are turning, there is no one that is either left behind or there is no one whose human rights are violated. This is just one of the examples. The other example is to your left. This coffee farmer is actually based in Kenya, and he's got relatives in Tanzania, which are known as the coffee makers of the continent. And that's where some of the world's best coffees come from. But therein lies a challenge. This coffee farmer has been running a hand-to-mouth operation for generations, meaning he stepped into the coffee trade, inheriting it from the elders, and all of them have been at the very bottom of the value chain. They are unable to scale the pyramid of trade in order for them to be involved at the very top tier, where things are at their most profitable or their most lucrative. Somehow, as coffee works its way up towards the what do you call it, the tasteful interiors of Starbucks or other reputable coffee shops around the world, somehow they get left behind. They are told not to come with. They are told, just like you, when you send your loaf of bread, they are told to just go to sleep, leave the coffee bags here and go away. You are not welcome. So blockchain makes it possible to track that coffee within a supply chain use case from the farm to your coffee table. That is why blockchain is so critical when deployed on that ledger. It's able to uncover every blind spot, every ill, if the supply chain ecosystem is doing things that are correct, blockchain is just revealing. So blockchain is a revealer. Blockchain is a revealer, rather than being only a transformer or a disruptor. Blockchain is changing the rule book by showing us who is handling the book from end to finish. And why is this coffee farmer left out of the room? Why is he not welcome at the table where large profits are being discussed? That is what blockchain seeks to reveal. So on a microscopic level, vote rigging has been a challenge around the world. Even as we speak now, the previous president of the US is currently in the process of filing a legal suit, if he hasn't filed it already, to basically cry foul in terms of the vote counting and what he alleges to be vote rigging. Where that case will go, hopefully it ends up in your lecture halls as you further seek to zoom in on justice and the machinery of justice on an international practice. However, vote rigging is not unique to the US. It's not unique to ex-President Trump. Vote rigging has been alleged the world over. So blockchain is going to ensure that the vote counting ledger or the vote accountability framework is revealed for what it is. It's revealed. Maybe you might have seen in the recent election in the US, some ballots had to be escorted by police in person, very armed guards. Blockchain seeks to digitally join such armed guards to become the digital law enforcer, to ensure that from the moment you cast your vote to the moment your vote is counted, the sanctity and the sacredness of that vote is protected to ensure that end to end, it's all digitally monitored on a immutable ledger to ensure that who you voted for is the very vote that counts on the other end. I just want to encourage all of you. I see some of you are already leaning forward with questions. Kindly make a note of the questions. In about 15 minutes, we're gonna have a hard stop. 15-20 minutes at most. We'll have a hard stop, and you can now bring out your questions. I will now proceed without much further ado. And of course, I'm unpacking a very significant practical application of blockchain among the real life cases. Let's do this. I will now zoom in on the Africa food supply chains. This is just one chain. However, all the other varieties of the food chain, they follow either one of two scenarios. They're either monopolized or they're democratized. And currently, democratization of Africa's food supply chain has been a pipe dream. It has been impossible, but blockchain seeks to actually shift that. And just to remind you, blockchain's use in supply chain, just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind that blockchain has got various use cases as you zoom in from a legal perspective. So the use case that we will zoom in on is within the supply chain, food being the core factor. And there you go. This is the monopolized model. This is the monopolized model. Once again, I encourage you to make notes of whatever questions you have. In about 15 or 20 minutes, we'll have a hard stop and we will now open to the official Q&A. So you're welcome to make careful notes of the questions you have, and I will gladly delve into as many of them as I can and do my best to ensure that clarity is brought to what might have lacked clarity on your part. Monopolized. If you are to look on it's my extreme left, that's the seeding process. This, good people, is the seeding process. As you evolve beyond the seeding process or the planting, you've got a tale of two farmers on this supply chain. The one on the top with the red X is a small scale sustenance family-owned farm. The one with the tick at the bottom and a machinery or a tractor, that is a commercial farmer. It may be farms, ecosystem of farms that are either family-owned or industry-owned. More on that later. I'm just wanting to introduce you to various players on the chain. The next one, middle top with the next tick, that one is the processing plant, is the food processing plant. Just to let you know, it's not easy for small-scale farmers to actually channel their produce into the food processing plant. What often happens, that's why there's a tick on that small-scale farmer. They are asked to wait outside, just like how your loaf of bread, as I explained at the beginning, was taken from you and you were asked to wait outside until, by some miracle, your loaf of bread emerges as another currency on the home front where you send it. Here, the farmer is asked to wait outside, and rather the produce basket is taken from them and is taken into the processing plant. They often cannot afford processing fee or food manufacturing or food packaging. And there at the bottom there, you are seeing that the farmer also is not allowed. Where you see the green ticks, it means the green ticks, they favor the commercial farmer. They favor the big guys. They favor Goliath, not David. So that's how the equation is set up. The next red tick is a truck. That's a miniature truck. It can be a tuk-tuk. It can be maybe a set of donkeys that can carry the small farmer's produce. It doesn't matter. But even that one, they find it hard for small logistic players to actually be allowed into the main value chain. I'll tell you what the main value chain is, or the main parts of the value chain. The third tick there is what in South Africa we call spaza shops. Those are small shops. They too are trading. They get their produce from the small farmers somehow, but they are not part of the lucrative part of the trade. Let me show you the Oscars of food production. They are here. They are sitting here on the chain. I'm going to highlight them in a moment. The person with the basket, that's you, the consumer. Those two ticks are the Oscars of the food supply chain. Let me explain. The trolley represents the big retailers. Let me put it to you in perspective, why it is significant that a farmer should not be walled out of this. The small-scale farmer, by not being able to put food, their produce, on large-scale retail, that's the trolley there. That is a $740 billion US trade on the African continent. And in other news, we've got about 33 million small-scale farmers versus just a modest 6 million commercial-sized farmers on the continent. The 33 million, they produce up to 80% of Africa's food security or Africa's food supply. Why is it that despite the small farmers producing 80% of the production output, they are actually walled out of the Oscars of the food supply chain, meaning they are unable to put their produce on the shelf or in the fridges? Maybe you're wondering, how are they not allowed? The regulatory environment is up to here. I'm going to unpack that in a moment, why monopolized supply chains are not good for global trade. And of course, the last tick there, that represents restaurant industry, eventing industry, weddings, business meetings, whatever eventing industry falls inside that, including the hotel and restaurant sector. Those are multi-billion industries where the small farmer is far from ever coming anywhere near those parts of the supply chain as the food chain moves from farm to fork. That is how it is set up. So that's the end goal. How does the food you ate last night, how did it end up on your table? Have you ever pondered on that? That's something worth pondering, whether as a human being or as a consumer or as a legal practitioner. How did your food end up in your fridge? Including the phone that you have, how did that phone end up in your hands? Have you ever pondered on how the supply chain, all the players, and who was walled out and who was allowed in? That is the fascination of the global trade. It is fascinating to some, but it's painful to others. Let me now reveal, given the time we have, let me reveal what blockchain will do in order to shift the rule book on the supply chain model. There we go. Monopoly is bad for business. Let's be clear about that, because it creates barriers to entry for the 33 million small-scale farmers, meaning they can sweat, they can work, but they are stopped very early at the bottom of the pyramid. They are stopped very early. They are asked to surrender their produce. They are asked to leave their produce at the door, but they are not allowed into the building where real profitable discussions are convened. Blockchain seeks to unravel who is preventing them from entering the profitable elements of the supply chain, who is creating the barriers to entry, and why. And blockchain also seeks to show the world, meaning the end user consumer, that perhaps that small scale farmer is not as evil as the bigger players are purporting them to be. Meaning the small scale farmer could be giving the world a truly organic offering more than even the big guys. But you and I as consumers, we don't know that because we don't have access to an immutable ledger. The ledger can be edited in whatever way. The ledger can be skewed or slanted away from our bias or from our judgment. And in the middle, large corporations, they are having a ball of a time on the profitable parts of the value chain. Why? Because they are the ones that have got the means financially and capacity-wise to meet the criteria, very strict criteria, to jump over the hoops. They're the ones that are actually in on the game. And to some extent, they manipulate the framework, but that's a topic for another day. And of course, wealth is now concentrated amongst a very few, whether it's the 1%, whether it's the 10%, or whether it's the 6%, but wealth is just concentrated. Everybody else is doing hard work, but global fair trade is not happening. Actually, unfair trade is taking place, and sustainable development goals are not met because this picture, this monopoly is not sustainable. It harms many in order to fulfill the appetite of a few. Where does blockchain come in? I'm glad you asked. Blockchain is able to reveal a democratized model in order to include the little guy, so that through your mobile device, you are able to interact with some QR codes on the packaging itself, whether it's strawberries, whether it's fruits, whether it's meat, or whatever it is that you are buying or purchasing. It could be goat meat, it could be whatever, bananas, mealies. You are able to interact with the packaging in order to see exactly where this item comes from. Lo and behold, if consumers realize that they're always buying, or rather their collective consumer spend is only plowed into the pockets of the big guys, they can ask why. Because at the moment, apart from all the rhetoric of inclusive growth, inclusive trade, and all that rhetoric that sounds good, how do you and I know where our food comes from? And how do you and I know? Let me give you an example with coffee. The coffee farmer in Kenya sells their coffee beans for X amount. But did you know, on average, to the dollar, coffee farmers in Kenya, Tanzania, and elsewhere in the world, they get a minimum of 5 to 8 cents. 5 to 8 cents, irregardless of what you're paying for your coffee. What you're paying, whatever amount you're paying, they only get 5 to 8 cents. And that is appalling. So blockchain seeks to reveal through supply chain use cases the who, the what, the when, and the why. Who is it that produced the food? Who is it that distributed it? Who is it that sold it? How did this food reach this shelf where I'm sitting here about to cherry pick it off the shelf? Or it can be e-commerce. How did this produce make its way into the e-commerce? Blockchain levels the play field. Blockchain, I must be clear on this. Blockchain does not create a witch hunt. Blockchain does not say the big guys are bad. Blockchain simply says, are the big guys treating the little guy with some fairness? That's what blockchain does. Blockchain puts the lights on. Blockchain shines the torch on the who, the what, the when, and the why. Keep that in mind. Most people think blockchain is going to rescue no, blockchain does not do anything. Blockchain actually lifts the lid on the truth, allowing the rest of you to now mobilize into action, to now defend the little guy through advocacy, through lawsuits, through whatever you want to do. But it's gonna create a free-for-all in terms of what will end up on your desks from as you put on the legal head. More on that. In the logistics, blockchain shows why is it that only the big trucking operators end up transporting the food, whereas even the little guys with the tuk-tuks, with the horses, with the donkeys, with the vans can actually do an equally good enough job, apart from those perishable foods that require to be refrigerated in transit. So blockchain levels the play field. It ensures that everybody on the chain is treated equitably. If they are not, the ledger will reveal. The ledger is something, the blockchain ledger is something you can take to court. It's something you can prosecute on. It's something that you can contest in the open court. That's why blockchain is fascinating. With that being said, and as we race to a hard stop in a moment, why is democratization good for business? I'm glad that you extended your curiosity. Blockchain ensures a win-win. For who? Everybody prospers. If everybody worked hard, then everybody is deserving of their wages. In the good book, it is written that every worker is deserving of their wages. So blockchain implements or makes possible the ethos that we as society aspire to. We aspire to fairness, we aspire to fair trade, we aspire to inclusivity and inclusive growth, whereby the little guy who has done equally hard work can also be compensated to the same level as the big guy who also deployed some hard work. We shouldn't allow a scenario where the little guy, because he couldn't afford a tractor, because he couldn't afford expensive fertilizers, he's now walled out of the trade. He's asked to leave the boxes and go home. We shouldn't allow that. If we allow that, then we will be creating a precedent. We will be creating a precedent whereby elements that should not be welcome to our humanitarian equation, they are allowed to sip in there. And only God knows where else that equation will go. So the second one, a variety of options for you and I as a consumer. We are given a wider variety. Perhaps some of you want to study competition law. It has been known that some bread suppliers or bakeries have been colluding on prices and doing price fixing things. That's an area of law that, as some of you are focusing in that area, you will look to blockchain as an enabler to uncover if there has been a collusion, to uncover where are all these inflationary prices coming from? Are they justifiable or are they not justifiable? And why is it that the Kenyan farmer or the Tanzanian farmer makes 8 cents compared to their American counterpart or whoever is serving coffee in a finished format in a restaurant? It could be $2, it could be $3, but why the 8 cents to the hard worker on the value chain? And of course, we can only run sustainable economies if we all practice a principle called lift as you rise, meaning the big guy should not prosper at the expense of the little guy. I'm sure that is what inspired some of you to end up in this legal profession. So fair trade and equitable trade is made possible when we know the truth. You know, a very unrelated scenario. It has been a practice of the last 100 years for employees to not know what their colleagues are earning, even if they could be working harder than their colleagues. So blockchain could reveal what the input is and what the output is. That's what blockchain does. It's a truth machine. It's a trust machine. It's a digital protected ledger that if you handle that ledger and you pace through it, you'll know the who, the what, the when, and the why. How can you be involved and what roles you as emerging practitioners within law can actually focus on, or what levers you can mechanize? Once again, look at that heading on the top, and I know that we are racing to our hard stop in a moment. This is a saying that we have in our family. It's inscribed in what we believe, both on the home front and on the businesses that we are privileged to be part of. We are human beings, not human doings. What does that mean? Some of you are wondering, how can you best position yourself to basically be hired in the marketplace, to be sought after, to be on the very top of your game? I'm glad you are wondering. It's more a matter of who you become than what you do. Fair enough, you'll pick up various specialties. Fair enough, some of you will pick up niche sectors within law and within technology. Fair enough, but it's more a question of who you become. Let me expatiate. Are you a solutionist? What is a solutionist? A solutionist is somebody who, think of it as the hammer and the nail. If they're a hammer, they're seeking a nail. If you are a solutionist, you will tend to welcome problems rather than run from the problems. I didn't say if you are a lawyer. No. Being a lawyer is actually what your profession certifies you at. But remember, law is what you do, but a human being is who you are. What type of a human being are you? Are you a solutionist? That is very critical. You need to be solution-minded, solution-oriented. That way, you will seek to find out the intersection where blockchain could be uncovering opportunities for the people that you will work for and the cases that you will work on. That's why you must be a solutionist. Ecosystems. I know gone are the days where lawyers can actually form a clique where they just relate with each other. Oh, you know what? 90% of my friends are lawyers. That is bad. That is terrible. At least 20% of your friends should be lawyers, but the rest of the 80% should be the other professions. Do you know why? Very seldom will you get your clients being lawyers. So why are you only going to functions where lawyers are? Why are you only hanging out with lawyers? You need to be very modest with curating an ecosystem of like, or rather like for like, meaning other people in the same profession. You need to diversify. You probably heard about diversifying in investments. Diversify your relationships. Diversify your ecosystems. You're all of you are relating to Madam Deborah, whom I regard to very in a heartfelt manner as senior counsel, which is where she's headed. But you shouldn't restrict your relationships within the legal profession. Go out there, go and relate to people that are solving for clean energy, people that are solving for self-driving cars, people that are solving for humanitarian challenges, people that are solving for really giant problems that are beyond your legal desk or your legal ecosystem. Those are the people that will send you a WhatsApp. Those are the people that will call you and say, you know what, there is a problem that you're solving and we think we need legal counsel. That's how it works. So keep that in mind. Who you become, a solutionist more than a lawyer. Ecosystems must be diverse. And the last part is you must become blockchain savvy. I'm about to race to the last slide in order to save time. In that slide, I'm not spoon feeding you on what you should do in blockchain or through blockchain. I'm simply lifting the lid on who you need to, or rather the areas of focus or the areas you need to pick up as a secondary study or as a parallel study to you pursuing your thriving legal practice or legal profession. You need to add the following 10 to your focus. The opportunities for all of you, that is self-explanatory. I will now focus on some of them. Because blockchain is an emerging technology, it unravels or it puts on the desk of multiple legal professionals and regulators the need to seek to understand and regulate this profession. From a regulatory perspective, if somebody is going to chart the policy, somebody has to implement the policy, somebody has to police or enforce the policy, somebody has to go to court when the policy or the policy lines are straddled. Very interesting. Smart contract. A smart contract, in short, because I'm running out of time, in short, a smart contract is a piece of law that is embedded into the code that determines how the transaction will be fulfilled, or rather an automated function. Let me give you an example. Your loaf of bread. If you deposit a loaf of bread, when it reaches Lagos, what should happen? When it reaches Johannesburg, what should happen? All of that is guided and informed by a smart contract. Think of it as an open and shut case. A legal team wrote it and they governed, or they informed that as soon as proof of goods is received, then the payment must be released. That is a smart contract. I don't have much time to dwell further into smart contracts or into blockchain regulation, from creation to enforcing or policing. I'm just gonna be cherry picking on the ends, because in 4 minutes at most, I need to come to a hard stop in order to open for your Q&As. And of course, the next level, the public, you're almost welcome. The public documents, and of course, there is the GDPR, or rather the governing of protection of information. That is a field on its own. How, in the past, you didn't know. I mean, there was a time in Nigeria where MTN was slapped with a fine because of how MTN conducted its telecoms business, or did not conduct the business. They were required by law to insist on a certain level of record keeping, but they didn't. So what if another scenario? What if they abused? That is the case of Facebook. What if there was a leak, but your details, personal details that are giving with pinpoint accuracy your location and your personal details that you thought were private, So firms are being held accountable around the globe in how they gather your information, how they protect your information. The same applies to the blockchain. And with the blockchain, firms cannot just sell their ledger to the highest bidder. And the next one, intellectual property. That is a field of blockchain. How are blockchain firms or blockchain creators or innovators or inventors, how are they going to protect their intellectual property? There it is. If you're wondering what's going to keep you busy, there you go. Good luck with that. The notary services, self-explanatory, corporate filings, dispute resolution, the tensions that arise at the intersection of blockchain mechanizing into industry. Lots of tensions. Leave human beings in a room, whether with blockchain or with lollipops, there's bound to be some tensions. Trust me, that's why your profession is so exciting. You tend to be the referees when human beings go wrong. And I hope that all of you are mentally resilient, apart from being blockchain savvy, as you referee some of these exciting but dreadful dynamics. Digital intellectual property is another field, and of course, chain of custody. That is also self-explanatory. Let's now race to the very last. I promise that I'm going to come to a hard stop at 10 past, and my apologies, I was aiming to come to a hard stop at 2 o'clock. I mean at your 3 o'clock. Let's look at that picture. That's my final pre-Q&A picture. The lady with a device protruding on her chest. It looks like an eyesore, right? That device, and firstly, the profession that lady belongs to is in the 17 and 1800s, particularly the 1800s. It's post the invention of the telephone by Alexandra Graham Bell. And that invention opened up a wide variety of sectors, or made possible what was not possible, your telegram and your telephone. However, in the background of this lady, by the way, her job title was a hello girl. How is that for a non-creative job title? She was called a hello girl. I don't know her name. My team did not leave her name in the research that they piled on my desk, but she's called a hello girl, meaning if you are attempting to call someone, maybe you are in Abuja, you want to call someone in Lagos, or you want to call someone in London, or you want to call someone in New York, the hello girl will be a telecoms operator that answers and say, hello, well, who is that? She says, this is Madam Deborah. I'm calling from Hilton. How can I help? Please transfer me. I need to speak to my team in New York. Okay, what she's gonna do, she's gonna transfer your call to the operating center in New York, which will now transfer it from the global to the regional, to the local, to the very household. So just for you to send someone a hi, instead of what you do now on WhatsApp, very effortlessly, you will go through at least up to 10 operators. Up to 10 operators, just to say, Madam Deborah, ma, hello. Very cumbersome, very expensive, I mean, just buying the device itself was really a nightmare. So remember the small farmer in Africa will not just lack a tractor, they will lack communication devices. So what you take for granted today, as you send, I mean, even now, most of you are sending me texts now. Those texts that you are sending on the group, they will have to go through up to 10 operators for me to be able to hear that, oh, this is insightful. Oh, thank you. You will have to go through 10 operators. But now, at your fingertips, you're just sending that message. When you think of blockchain, think of it as what you are doing now. Blockchain cuts out the middleman. Blockchain exposes the middleman. Blockchain brings you as lawyers closer to your industry, brings the farmer closer to the retailing point, closer to the hotel, closer to their end goal. Their end goal is to enter the Oscars of the farming industry, which is to receive some really lucrative invoices. Before blockchain, people are asked to wait outside, produce the goods, but go home. What do you want? Who do you think you are? You are just a small farmer. But blockchain says, wait a minute, if the farmer did the work, the farmer must get paid. If the farmer's produce is organic or vegan, they must be paid vegan prices. Do not mangle and do not monopolize the value chain in such a way that it favors the 1%. That's what blockchain does. On that note, I will now open up the floor to the Q&A, and I will convey once again my thanks to Madam Deborah and the team for bringing us together through the Zoom technology. Much appreciated.